Hi everybody, welcome. During this stressful time in the world, I wanted to create something lighthearted that might bring some joy into your life. And since I'm running low on toilet paper right now, I thought it would be fun to make my own toilet paper out of cake. This one was surprisingly very easy and quick to make. All right, let's get into it. I have already baked 3 6-inch round cakes. I'm cutting off the top to level it, and then I'm torting it, which means I'm cutting it in half horizontally. I was feeling like the cakes were too big, so I decided to trim them down just a touch, so they ended up being 5-inch round cakes. For only one of the layers, I'm cutting out the center by using a circle cutter, which kind of is making it look like a donut. Okay, let's get the first toilet paper cake stacked. I'm starting with a 5-inch cardboard circle, and I brush just a dab of frosting on my board, and then I begin layering up my cake and frosting, leaving the cake with a hole in it for the very top. Once I have it all stacked, I'm covering it in a layer of buttercream frosting. You don't want to overdo it in frosting here, you just need a thin layer. And once I have the entire cake covered, I begin smoothing it out with my icing smoother. To get that nice sharp edge, I'm using my icing scraper to push the buttercream in towards the center, as I usually do. Once it's almost smooth, I go around it a few more times with a hot spatula. Let's move on to the next toilet paper roll cake. For this one, I'm starting by spraying a 5-inch cake pan with cooking spray, and then I press Rice Krispie treats into the pan. Just fill it up and pack it in there tightly, and then set it aside to harden. Next, I'm cutting my final cake in half, and then I'm going to stack up these 4 cake halves, and now I have a half of a cake. Back to my Rice Krispie treats. I've removed it from the pan, and now I'm cutting this in half. Once I have it cut, I'm filling it with buttercream frosting and stacking it on top of each other like I did the cake. Next, I'm adding a thin layer of buttercream frosting to this inner side of the cake, and I grab my Rice Krispie treat side and I push them together. My treats were not completely hardened because I was rushing to get this cake finished, but if you make this cake, be sure to let the treats completely harden before you start working with them. Once they are stuck together, I'm creating a hole in the top by using a circle cutter as a guide. And next, I'm cutting off a tiny little slice of the Rice Krispie treat so that the cake will be flat on the bottom and won't roll away on me. And then I turn it over on its side. It was a little wonky, but I didn't mind. Next, I covered it completely in buttercream frosting, and that is when I noticed it getting a little bit saggy, so I popped it into the refrigerator to harden up. And later on, I went back and smoothed out the buttercream frosting. Moving on to the fondant. I've already rolled out a piece of fondant, and I'm draping it over the top, and using an X-Acto knife, I'm cutting around the edge to remove the excess. And I'm also cutting the fondant out of that little hole in the center too. For the outside of the cake, I'm rolling out a very thin strip of fondant, and I'm pressing a floral impression mat into it. I also have another impression mat with just small dots on it that I'm using. You can really use any impression mat that you have that resembles toilet paper. There are all kinds of styles, so just go with whatever you have. Using my pastry cutter, I'm measuring the height of the cake, and then I'm cutting out the strip of fondant. Once I have it cut, I'm rolling it up, and then I'm unrolling it onto the side of the cake. I didn't show you this, but the sides were brushed with water first to get the fondant to stick. I'm letting the end of the paper hang in a way that real toilet paper would. Toilet paper is not perfect, and that is what I'm going for here. I'm also using my X-Acto knife to make the edge look kind of ripped and torn. For the top of the toilet paper, I'm using a tool I already have that has bristles on it. If you don't have something like this, you could use a knife, or I've seen people use a scrub brush with plastic bristles. So just find something that you can scrape the top of the cake with. For the inner cardboard tube, I've cut a strip of brown fondant, and I'm shaping it into a tube shape, and I'm attaching it to the inside to resemble the cardboard. Once I have the cardboard into place, I'm also adding a black circle of fondant to make it look kind of dark and shadowy on the inside of the circle. My other cake was done in the exact same way, but I'm draping the strip of fondant over the top just like this. You want one end tucked up under the cake and the other left to look unrolled. I also added a small strip underneath the unrolled side to hide the buttercream. And the remaining details of this cake were done in the exact same way as my first cake. To display these cakes, I'm moving them over onto a cutting board. If this were for a client though, it would be best to attach them to a cake drum. I'll finish with my toilet paper cakes. I think they look pretty realistic and they were super easy to make. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that you all take care of yourselves right now and please stay healthy. If you have any ideas for me, please let me know down in the comment section. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.